Okay, Tebogo, can you please just confirm that you can see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so as I said earlier, we've already covered the admin section and the functionality available on the admin page. Please refer back to that video if you haven't looked or wasn't able to join that session. So what I first want to look at for the session today is fleet health. So that's, as I said earlier, to use Osprey PRO as a tool to manage your fleet. Now, all users will have access to fleet health and be able to view the fleet status of your devices. So that's now the power quality devices that's installed. The only function or dashboard that will not be available to standard users is this fleet configuration status dashboard. All the rest will be available to all user roles on Osprey PRO. And just again, for background, on Osprey PRO, a user must be set up with a role. And the 3 roles is administrator or account administrator, fleet manager, and then a standard user. So the account administrator, as said in the previous session, will manage the account, the users, the instruments, all the measurement points, and the setup of that. Basically, all information relating to your devices, your instruments, and the users, as well as the Osprey PRO account. Now, the fleet manager will have access to certain functions on that, but not all of them. And then we'll also have access to this fleet configuration status. What this fleet configuration status is a dashboard that will show you the configuration of all your devices and how your configuration have changed in the past. Now, this specific dashboard is not available to standard users, but going forward from here on out, all functions will be available for standard users as well. Yeah, so just to show you quickly what this specific dashboard is. It is a dashboard that will basically show you what has been set up on your individual devices or on your measurement points. So it will just basically illustrate what trends was enabled and what monitors you've already set up on the measurement point. It will also indicate your supply setup, the interface that was set up, for example, the VT ratio, your CT ratios, and also you can get a snapshot of what the real-time view was during the last configuration that you've done. Now, the nice thing about this dashboard is that you keep track, or Osprey PRO keeps track of how the configuration of a specific measurement point changed over the last, since it's been commissioned. So you can see if we take this specific measurement point as an example, you can see that the configuration of this has changed 5 times. So you can actually scroll back in history and see on what date and time and by whom was something changed in terms of the configuration, supply, or interface of that specific measurement point. So this will give you a good tool to be able to audit what changes has been made and when changes was made. So for example, if something was changed that's incorrect, you can actually go back in history to see when and by whom that was done. So that is the main function of this dashboard. It's not a tool to reconfigure your devices. So you won't be able to change any settings in terms of the configuration on this page. It just gives you a status of your configuration since it's been commissioned. Okay. The actual change of configuration that we covered in the previous session, and that is done by actually changing the setup of your measurement point under the administrator portal. Under setup is where you change that. So just refer to the previous training video for more details on that. Okay, getting back to the fleet health portal, We've covered the fleet configuration status. Now, the other two dashboards is to provide you on a status of your device. So the first dashboard, the current fleet status, shows any issues that the devices are or may be experiencing at this moment of time. So if I go to that page, it shows my list of measurement points that I currently have commissioned. And it shows if there's any issues with any four of these devices in terms of clock problems, any health issues, maybe the GPS is not synchronized, any issues like that, the device may be offline or the data is corrupted. Any such issues will be shown on this page. Now you can see that for the 4 meters on this demo account, that all 4 of them the status is good and there's no issues with any of them at this point of time. You can also see what the average data availability is on your whole fleet of devices. So your total average data availability of these 4 devices is what you'll see here. And you can also see the individual data availability for each measurement point over the last 30 days. Now, if there was an issue with one of the devices, you will see an exclamation mark, or it will be highlighted in red. So the measurement point will be highlighted in red, and there should be an icon that indicates what Osprey PRO suspect the issue is with that specific measurement point. You can always get more information of that measurement point by clicking on it, and that will take you to the next dashboard that we have. That's the instrument repair status dashboard. That will show firstly if the device is online and what the latest or the last status is that you or was completed for this device. So you can see for this specific measurement point, the status is set as good in operation, and it was last done by Travis Stark. Now you can at any point update this status. If you, for example, identify an issue with the device, let's say there's a GPS synchronization issue, you can update the status so that you also keep track and record of the status of the device, and give a responsibility to a user on Osprey PRO to look at it. So if I can give you an example, if you click on update, it will take you to a page where you can now add a responsible party to this specific issue. You can action it to someone. So I can action this to someone, some user on the account, and give a status to this device. So if this device was, for example, faulty and it was a comms issue, then I can actually give this action to someone and give a note or enter a note, and that will be sent to that user via email, that this device has been allocated to them to check the status of the device. So it can be a quite successful tool in operating your fleet and to maintain the status and audit your devices to make sure they are still online. Now, I'm not going to save it at this point because it's still good and in operation. But if you update it, the latest update will show on this list. Now, you can also use the tabs on the top to view what your current status is of the device. So health status trends will show you trends of the specific health indicators that Osprey PRO looks at to identify an issue. So the first one is the time drift. This is an indication, or this will give you an indication if there's a GPS issue. If it's, for example, not synchronized with time, and you'll see if I just scroll down, you can see the time stays quite constant and is synchronized with time. So there's no issue in terms of time drift. This big jumps that you see here is most likely just after a disturbance or load shedding event, where there was one sample where the GPS hasn't synchronized the time yet, but then after that it was synchronized. So you can also see in the last 7 days, there was no issue in terms of valid time for this device. There's no issue then in terms of time drift. Then in terms of temperature, this will give you the temperature of the device, how it fluctuated over the last 7 days. We just take this as a better example. It shows there's more data points. There's some data missing on that unit. But you can see this one is, you can see how the temperature fluctuates over time. You can see that the battery is charging. There was supply voltage present, so there's no issue in terms of power supply to the unit, and there was no issue with the battery being charged. The next one is the modem signal strength. So this will indicate if there's an issue with the connectivity to the device. Maybe there's bad signal or anything like that. So minus 68 dBs is almost the average that we have, or dBm is the average that we have here, and it's that's what we will say good. If the signal strength drops below minus 90, then you can start having issues with connectivity to the device. You can see there was no connection retry. So this is Osprey PRO trying to connect to the device. You can see over the last few days, there was no issues in terms of connecting to the unit. And then in terms of the drive usage, you can just see how full the drive is in terms of the data stored on a memory card, and then some other indicators that can also help you to identify an issue with the unit. All right, so that's the health status change. So over the last few days, you can also get the latest health status. So this will give you the status of the device for the last reading it took. So you can see what the time drift is currently. Is the GPS time synchronized? What the temperature is? So just some additional information to get about the device at this moment of time. All right, so that basically covers your current fleet status and your instrument repair status dashboards. Now, the next one under fleet health tools is where you can manage your data on the device. So you can delete data on the unit remotely. So you can select the device and then select if you want to delete all data but retain the measurement point configuration. You don't want to delete the actual meter point. You just want to delete the data on the unit. Or you can detach and delete all measurement points. So this will delete or wipe it basically clean, and you'll need to reconfigure the device if you take that step, for example. And then there's some other functions or delete methods as well. Okay, the next option is instrument management tools. This is where you can actually set up some settings. So you can, for example, change the time source. Now, by default, it is set to auto. So you can get that, or what it's actually set up currently by just clicking on get. You can see this device was set up for time source to automatically select the best time source. You can also, for the space reclaimer, you can specify a value when the device should start deleting all data. So it's currently and by default set to 95%, and when it should check, what period it should check the drive usage. Then you can also have a custom server that you can set up for time, some additional services that you can enable. For example, you can enable your Modbus, TCP, DMP3, IEC 61850, and also if your devices are on the latest firmware, you can remotely actually enable the web interface as well. So now we've also covered the web interface or the HMI in one of the previous sessions. So please refer just to that one if you need more information on how to use the HMI web interface. All right, and then on the bottom of the screen, you can restart the recording service, restart the instrument, and some few other options available to manage your instrument as well. So that is your instrument management tools. You can upload and edit single line diagrams. Not everyone has access. Actually, only the super users have access to firmware upgrades. So you most likely won't be able to do remote firmware upgrades. But we, from CT Labs' point of view, can assist in firmware upgrades if there's a major firmware upgrade that needs to be done remotely. Okay, let's take maybe 5-10 minutes questions in terms of fleet health before I move over to event annotation and then trends and reports. Do we have any questions? All right, so I don't see any questions, so I'm just going to carry on. Okay, now the next portal or section on Osprey Pro that I want to focus on is the power quality page or portal. This is where you would find all your voltage dips and swell information, or basically all your incidents on the network. Not all events, because you can obviously set up monitors for other events as well, such as voltage transients, voltage spikes, and so on. But the power quality page will focus on the NRS power quality parameters. So that will be your voltage dips, swells, and then also your other power quality parameters such as THD, unbalance, flicker, and so on. Now, under the power quality portal, the issues page will contain a list of your current open incidents. Now, in the first training session that we did in the beginning of the year, I discussed the difference between an incident and an event. So Osprey Pro's got a concept we call incident matching. Basically, what it does is because your devices are GPS time synchronized, let's say you have a fleet or a number of devices in your network, when there's an event or when there's something that happens in the network, a dip, by using that time synchronization, Osprey Pro can match events and group them together into one single incident. So let's say there was a fault in your network, and that fault caused a dip that you can see on multiple places in the network. Because the devices are time synchronized, we then group all those dips into one incident, which you then see on this list. So if I take an example, and this list will contain all the open incidents. Now I'll explain that now as well. So basically, this should be your page where you keep track of all incidents that has not been investigated or closed yet. So you can see currently there's a number of events or incidents that are open. And for each one of them, you'll see what measurement point was influenced. So you can see what measurement point was affected by something on the network. You'll see when it happened, what the date and the time is as well. So, for example, if I take this event, you can see that there was what measurement points was impacted, what the residual voltage was during that event. So in this case, the voltage dropped by plus minus 16% at one of the specific measurement points, and the duration is 0.1 seconds. Now, on the bottom of each one of the incidents, there's a few functions available. The first one is you can close this incident. So if you've looked at it and you've investigated and you're happy that you want to close it, you can close it and it will remove that incident from this list. It's not going to remove it from Osprey Pro. You'll always be able to get it on the issue history page. So that's where your whole archive, your whole issue history can be found. You can actually filter and search for incidents within specific periods. And using tags, you can filter for specific incidents as well. I'll discuss that as well. The next one is you can assign this to someone. So you can assign this event with a priority to someone, some user on the account, and give them instruction. If you do this, that person will get an email with the instruction and the priority of this incident. So again, this is a function that you can use, or a tool that you can use to assign incidents to people to investigate. Okay, so that is the assign function. Sorry, just go back one screen. Then you have the no cause yet button, or basically this is where you would annotate and give the event a cause. I'll go through that now in more detail. And the next is issue tags. This is where you can actually tag it. Let's, for example, say you want to tag all incidents that was cable faults. Then you can add a tag cable fault, and you can use that tag to in the future filter and just search for incident that was caused by cable faults. So you can see here's an example, cable fault. You can at any point add additional tags with descriptions. And if I now tag it as a cable fault, you can see that the cable fault tag is now here. And if I search for it under my issue history, then and I filter for specifically cable faults, only incidents with that tag will show up on the list. Then you can also report on this specific incident. So if you click on report, you can get an incident report. So the report will basically summarize the waveforms and some of the information of this event. Now I'm going to generate that report. So you can see if I click on incident, it asks me if I want to schedule it, and I click on yes. Now in the background, the Osprey Pro is going to create the report that you can then download to add to another report to send on. I'll show you where you then get that when we get to the report page. And then the last one I want to show you is the event viewer. Now the event viewer is if you want to, well, let me rather give you an example or demonstrate that. So let me first click on the event incident. If I click on it, you can see what happened. So you'll be able to then, you see the list of measurement points that was influenced by this event on the network. So you can see two events what was grouped into one incident. So you can see the measurement points that was affected. It gives a class for each one of the measurement points. So you can see it's a dip type Y. So it's classified according to the NRS 048 2015 scatter plot. So that is to group basically events according to the depth of the event and the duration of the event. So you'll be able to see how bad that event was. You also get the residual voltage for each, or for the voltage for each specific measurement point, the duration, and also the predicted source direction. So where this basically, or this event came from. So Osprey Pro, or the device, is predicting that this is an upstream event. And then you get spark lines that just shows you the small images of how your voltage RMS, current RMS, power, and reactive power, active power, and reactive power looks for each one of them. Now you can click on them, and that will then give you more information on the right side of the page, or basically enlarge that graphs so that you can then zoom in or even export the graphs in a PNG or SVG format or in CSV format. If you click on fetch simplified waveforms, it will then fetch the waveform data. So that's the half or the 1/6 cycle RMS data. And this is then your 50 kilohertz sample data. So it shows you your voltage, your current, how your current waveform current looks during that period, and so on. Now, this is the simplified waveform. So the raw waveform will give you even more samples. You can see it's also a bit slower to process. But yeah, you can get that then and use that graphs as well for exporting or so on. Now, also, if you want to make the screen larger, there's a arrow button here that's sometimes difficult to see. But if you click on the arrow, it will then actually enlarge this page, so you can then see it in a more clearer view as well. Okay. So there's also a geo mapping. So this is your what devices was affected. So only the devices that was affected by this event will show up on the map. And then also the single line diagram, and also only the devices that was affected by the event will be indicated on the single line diagram. Okay. Next, what I want to show you is to actually annotate this event. That is now by using this course button or function. If you click on that, it will take you to a page where you can add additional information to this incident. So you can provide a description, so a short description. You can give a detailed description of what caused the disturbance. You can also provide the party responsible. So maybe this could be a utility fault or upstream utility event. It can also be caused by third party, for example, or so on. You can then also provide the circuit where the fault originated from, if there was an asset that basically caused the event, what voltage level the fault occurred, and then what is the classification of the event. So basically what caused this event. So this can be lightning, human error, cable fault, examples like that. It's all examples of classifications, how you can classify this. And you can at any point add additional causes by using this basically gear setting here to add additional causes, which you can then select. You can add additional effects. So what was damaged by this, if there was any equipment that was damaged by this cause or by this fault, and so on. Now you can see here's an example of a user-defined field that I've created. So this is all default text boxes and information that you can fill in, but you can add additional fields. So let's say, for example, you want to create a work order number for every incident, and you want to add that to the description or to the incident as extra information. You can define that field and then you can fill that information in. Now, I just want to quickly show you how you do that. So again, that is actually under one of the admin page portal responsibilities, and under tools, there's user-defined fields. So under here, you can create additional fields that you think may be maybe good to add to the annotation of an event. So for example, you can click on add, then you can provide a name for the field, a description, where on Osprey Pro this field must be added. So in this case, it will be under the issue cause. So this is the application for this field is under the issue cause. and then what data type. So the field can be in a string format, date format, a number, or Boolean value. So you can see there's quite flexibility in terms of adding additional information that you can then fill into the course of each incident. And then once you've completed this, you register the course, and it will then actually be saved as the course of the event. So then you can, at any point in future, go back to an incident and get the information that was attached to this for reporting or extra information you require. So this is quite important if you want to have a permanent DIP management program, or you want to run a DIP management program on your network, to get a characteristic performance of your network. So over time, if you complete this regularly and you update your causes and your events, what caused them, over time you'll be able to get a good idea of how your network is performing, what issues there are in your network, and what needs to be looked at, or is what's within your control and what's external to you and you don't have control to or about. Right. So that's the course annotation. So there's a lot of functionality and flexibility on that. Now, the next one that I wanted to show you was the event viewer. The only difference between the event viewer and what you see here is that on the event viewer, you can plot the trends of the different measurement points basically on top of each other. So to show you an example of this, I'm going to go to the event viewer, then just click on query. So it's basically going to query all the data for both of the measurement, of all the measurement points that was impacted during that event. And then why is there, just want to make sure why nothing came up there. Just go to event again. Let's just make this a bit longer. So it's just busy connecting, getting information. Okay, actually, that's not necessarily what I want, but here you can see the dates and the times of events. You can see that they align. So you know these two events was caused by the same issue because they have the same date and time. So now you can, for example, I just want to get a good one, this to show you this. We know this is caused by the same thing because it's the same time and date that this happened. Now I can select both of them and I can click on detail on top. Now I can plot different graphs. So I can actually plot an FFT of the waveform. I can view the phasor data, scatter plots, dual line graphs. But let me just show you a normal line graph of both these measurement points. Now I can take the RMS voltage of both of them. Let's just take for phase A and plot them on the same graph. So now I can see how that dip looked on different points on the network by plotting them on the same graph. I can do the same thing for the current. So using the cycle data stream, so that's your RMS cycle information, the RMS current, let's just take channel 1. Okay, and you can see the difference in your RMS current between the two measurement points. Okay, you can also plot the waveform on top of the same graph. So you can plot by using the waveform data stream. You can plot the voltage waveform. Again, let's just select channel 1, plot. And here you can see the voltage waveform on the two measurement points. So obviously, this is 2 volt different voltage levels. So the one is 66 kV and the other one is 11 kV. So that's why the magnitude don't match up, but you can then see basically the waveform on top of the same graph. So this is not maybe the perfect example. If it was the same voltage level, you would see how the magnitude of the voltage waveform on one looks compared to the other one, and if there's a phase shift or anything like that. Okay, so that's the event viewer. So basically you can plot additional trends and waveform data. Okay, just going back to this page. Now, if you've then dealt with the incident and you're happy with it, you can close it. You can see if I close it, it's going to remove it from my list of active events. And then we have the issue history page. Now, this page will contain all your incidents from the beginning or since the beginning of the account. And this is also where you can filter now for specific incidents. So you can filter for a specific period of time, only if maybe for specific measurement points, or even for tags. So if you've got more tags here, you can actually filter for, let's say you want to view all load shedding incidents. So if you've tagged them with load shedding, you can filter for load shedding events, and only the events that was caused by load shedding will then show on this list. So if I just show you quickly that as an example with the cable fault, if I select all measurement points and I select cable fault and I'll click on fetch issues, it will only show the incidents that I tagged as cable faults. So this is just an example. I'm not saying these are cable faults. It's just an example of how to use tagging. And you can change the quality criteria at any point. So this was now obviously for the last month, but you can go even more. You can make this, 100 days, for example, and then search for over the last 100 days. But you can see there isn't more events that I tagged. If I don't want to tag for anything specific, I can just click remove the tag filter, and then it shows you your whole list of events. Okay, so that's issue history. Then we have additional dashboards. These dashboards will give you an overview of the power quality performance of your site, of your measurement points. So the first one is the current enterprise power quality status. It will basically give the status of your power quality or your power quality at this moment of time. So again, it takes your measurement points that you have, and you can see that in terms of your other power quality parameters, which is your voltage regulation, unbalance, voltage distortion, and flicker, there isn't any problems at this moment of time. So all the measurement points are within the limits and within the compatibility limits that's specified in the NRS 048. We will actually in the next session, next month, we haven't made this public yet, but we will be presenting a small power quality course, so fundamentals of power quality, which one of the things will be the NRS standards. We'll look at what is classified as voltage unbalance, what is voltage distortion, and what the limits are on different voltage levels. So that will be upcoming sessions that we'll have in the months coming up. So you can look forward to that if you need additional information in terms of what is power quality and how do you assess power quality. But just for you, Osprey Pro will do this automatically. So it uses the NRS standard, and then using that, it assesses your power quality and provide you with an overview if there's an issue with your power quality at this moment of time. So currently you'll see all of them are there's no issue, basically. So that's your current enterprise power quality status. But you can also view your performance, your power quality performance over the last period of days or different periods. So if I click on that, you can see there's firstly different periods that you can select. You can select the previous 30 days, last month, last 3 months, or last 12 months, so last year. And you can select for what measurement points do you want to actually look at in terms of your performance for power quality. Now, again, it shows you your single line diagram with your different measurement points and also where they are geographically on maps. So if I want to view what is my power quality performance at a specific point, so let's click, for example, on that specific measurement point. Now it shows me where on the single line diagram it is, and it's also highlighting your performance for power quality. So this is basically shows you how far or close you are to the threshold limits, to the NRS limits. So basically the 0 mark here is where your limits, basically the NRS limits, and the closer you are to 0, the closer that measurement point is to exceeding the NRS limits. If it goes to red, then you know it's exceeding, and you can see by how far is it exceeding your NRS 048 compatibility levels. Now for this specific measurement point, if we look at the different parameters, we have your 5% voltage regulation, 95% voltage unbalance, voltage THD, and then flicker. So you can see where they are on the list of parameters. If I click specifically, for example, on THD, now it shows me over the last period of 30 days how my THD power quality performance is for this specific site. And you can see it's still in the green, so it's not close to where you need to worry about the limits. So the THD performance is fine. So the same for, let's take your unbalance. If I click on unbalance, you can see the unbalance is also far in the green. So it's far from the NRS limits. The middle graph shows you your individual harmonics, voltage harmonics from the 3rd up to the 23rd for the uneven harmonics. So the same thing here, you can click on a specific harmonic and you can see how, for example, your 5th harmonic voltage changed in terms of power quality performance over the last 30 days. Now, this is just an overview. You would obviously want to generate a power quality report that will look into this in more detail. But this is just for you to maybe identify if there is any issues in terms of power quality at any point that you need to worry about or you need to investigate further. Again, now you can click on a different measurement point and it will change your the highlighted dots change. So now you can click on that dots and it will show you how the parameters are performing for that specific measurement point. Okay, so that's the enterprise power quality performance dashboard. And then the last one that we have here is network disturbance summary. It will show you a summary of your network dips or disturbances. So if I just filter, for example, for the last 100 days, it will, let's just make this the beginning of the year. So from the beginning of this year and for 100 days after that, I want to view what is my disturbance, power quality disturbance performance of all my measurement points. Again, you can actually filter for specific measurement points or specific issues, but I'm just going to look at the overall performance. And now it's going to plot tables of basically what sort of dips was picked up in this month. So you can see that the highest number is wide dips. There was quite a number of interruptions. Also a large number, 14 X1 dips, 7 dip type T dips. So this will classify your dip performance on what voltage level this happened. Now, this information, such as the classification, the party responsible, voltage level, and so on, this information will get better as you complete the causes. So as you complete the causes and you specify responsible people and or parties, and you specify a classification for an incident, that will show on this list. So for example, if I have cable faults and I have load shedding, nature, or events that was caused by nature, then all of them will show on this list, and you'll see the number of events that was caused by that specific that issue. So this is how you would then look at your characteristic performance of your network and see what is causing the events, and where in your network is the most events. So you can see most of the events are actually happening at this Westlock Solar 1. So there are quite substantially a lot more events at this measurement point compared to the other 3. And then you also have some other statistical values, such as the hour of the day, day of the week, and month of the year. So now you can get a good idea of what time of the day and what day of the week most of the events happened. So obviously, the longer period of time will give you a better statistical overview of your disturbance performance of your network. So I can make this, for example, 2021, and then for the whole year, if I then refresh that, now you can see a clearer overview of what day of the, I just see this graph needs to be updated, but you can see there was 40 events on Sunday. Let's just see there's some issue with the graphing, but again, you can see just what was the number of events per day, and so on. Okay, so that's network disturbance summary. And then lastly, there's some additional tools available to manage your issue. But I'm not going to go through that because, if you need, for example, if you want to manage your issues individually, you can actually do that by, let's say I want to classify all these as the same cause. Then I can select a number of incidents and give them the same cause, for example. So this is just a issue management page where you can manage your issues more effectively, rather than maybe doing them individually on the issues page. So here you manage them individually, but on the issue management page, you can actually manage them individually and specify or select more points, which you can then merge or split or provide the same cause to them. So let's say there was a number of load shedding events in the month. I want to give them all the same cause. Then I can select them on the list here, and then just once provide a cause, and then all of them will be classified with that cause, rather than individually completing the cause for each one of them. All right, so that is the Power Quality Portal. Do we have any questions here before I then continue with trending and reports? Yes, Peter.
I suppose the difference between an event and incident is that the event is for just one unrelated event, which is just singular, and then the incident is when there's multiple events that were the same incident. Is that, do I understand this correctly?
That's correct, yes, Peter.
The tagging, I would imagine, would come in handy perhaps for the load shedding, because load shedding is not related to your management of your network. It's something external. So you would have lost supply, not due to a poor network. You've lost supply due to a supply point issue. And one would want to distinguish between interruptions that are due to the supply point issue and interruptions that are due to the fault.
Yes.
And one would tag it in that manner, I suppose.
Yeah, so that's one way of doing it as well, is to tag it in that way. So you can tag all incidents that was caused from the supply points or load shedding, or it could even be a external fault that's not from within your network, for example, and you want to tag that as it's external, or maybe utility fault.
In future, would there be automation of that possible? Or, I mean,
Yes.
ideally, I think the tool probably would be able to identify that itself, that this was an external event.
Yeah, that is 100% correct, Peter. So what we want to build in, and it's currently already there, and the only thing is we need more clients using that function, is if you can, when you start using the tagging, basically you can then learn a model, build a model that can start to classify that automatically. So then it becomes an AI machine learning process and model. And the idea is to do exactly that. So we just need clients to actually use that function and to start tagging the events so that the model can start learning and become accurate to actually do that automatically going forward. For example, load shedding events would be quite similar. You know, there's a loss of voltage and current basically goes to zero, and you can know the duration will be at least close to 2 hours, for example. So that's just the easy way.
Identifiable by the.
Yes.
So it could always suggest maybe what the tag should be, and then have a external confirmation perhaps by some human being as well. But it would be nice if it could do some of this routine in the background.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to do, Peter. So yes.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Okay. I'm then going to continue to the rest, and I think I'm immediately going to jump to reports, so that we can then look at the report that I generated for that specific incident, and then also look at some of the other reports that you can generate specifically then with the focus on a power quality assessment report. So to get to the report section of Osprey Pro, you go to the home portal, and then there's a reports page. So there's two types of reports that you can generate on Osprey Pro. We have ad hoc reports and scheduled reports. The only difference between the two is that a scheduled report you can schedule to have to basically for Osprey Pro to generate the report monthly or weekly or even daily. So you basically create or schedule a report once, and then Osprey Pro will automatically generate that report at whatever time or frequency that you've selected, and then send that to you via email. So that's a scheduled report. An ad hoc report is you want to generate a report on the fly at this moment of time, and you only want to generate it once. It's maybe not a recurring thing. So that's the difference between the two, but ad hoc reports can also be emailed to you. So if you create a schedule ad hoc report right now, it will also or can also be emailed to your email address. So let's first show you an ad hoc report. If you go there, it will show your whole list. So you as a user, it will show all the reports that you as a user created. Here you can see a number of reports that I've done in the past. With the type of report, the description, so what measurement point the report was generated for what period, according to what standard, the status of the report, and then links to the report. So if you generate a report, ad hoc report, you'll always be able to go back and download the same report in PDF or Word format, depending on what you specify or select. So here is the incident report that I created a few minutes ago. You can see it was updated 31 minutes ago. It's an incident report, and it was for these two measurement points that was impacted. So if I download that in PDF form, you can see now it's downloaded to my PC, and I can open it up. So here it will just give you some basic information of this incident. So it will firstly give you the date and time, then a link to that event. So now you can click on that. So if I click on it, it will take me to that incident on Osprey Pro. So you can see here, it immediately takes me to it. Okay. Let me just download it again. And then it shows you what standard is it using for this report. You can see there's no course specified. So if you completed additional information, so if you completed additional course information, then that will also be on this list. So there will also that fields and what you've entered, or those fields and what you've entered will also be on this report. Then it's the NRS 048 scatter plot. So you can see the two measurement points where those two measurement points or the two events are classified on the scatter plot, and then the name of the two sites, just a small image of the voltage wave or voltage RMS, current RMS, active and apparent power, reactive power, when it happened, the duration, what the residual voltage is, what's the dip type, and then also an indication of the direction or the source. From is it downstream or upstream? So you can see the arrow is showing up, indicating that it could be an upstream event. So just remember that this is an algorithm that's implemented. So they're using an algorithm to try and identify this as an upstream event. You need to just also do your own investigation. Okay, so that's for example, how an incident report, the default incident report looks like. All right, next, you may be interested in doing a power quality assessment report. Now that you can see, I've done an example of that. I just want to do a new one so that you can see how you do it. So you click on Schedule New. You then select the report type. So here is the list of reports that you can generate. As I said earlier in the training, we're thinking of having a training session where we focus in more detail on each one of these individually. But for a site assessment report, in terms of power quality, you would go to Site Assessment Power Quality Standard. So you select that report type. You then select the standard that you want to use for the report. The NRS 048 2015 is the latest version. You can then select the period that you want to generate the report for. So this will now be for the last month of May. And then I then select at what measurement point I want to generate a report. So let's take that measurement point. You can see I do have data available. If I don't have data available, it will look like that, grayed out. So now I can see for the period I've selected, there's no data available for this specific measurement point. But for this one, there is data available. You can then select the report format, PDF or Word, and you can specify if you want Osprey Pro to email it to you or not. So I'm not going to email it to myself now, but I'm just going to schedule it. It's then going to show up on the list, and Osprey Pro is now currently busy creating the report. So it may just take a few seconds to generate that report.
Under reports on the home reports.
Sorry, Peter, are you asking a question?
Apologies, I didn't realize my mic was on.
Okay. So you can see it's currently busy updating the status. Once it's available, you'll see the links on the list. So while that's happening, let me just show you some other reports that we have available. So below the site assessment power quality standards, there's voltage events, flicker, harmonics, magnitude, voltage THD, and voltage unbalance. All of these are part of the site assessment report. But if you want to only look at the specific section, so you don't want to generate the whole site assessment report, you only want a specific section, then you can select one of these on the bottom. You can also just get a summary. So let's do that as well. Let's just generate a summary report for the same measurement point for the same period, so you can see the difference. So it's busy with that. And then some additional reports, such as consumption reports, your enterprise power quality summary. So it will give a summary of your power quality of all your devices. So the previous summary, the site assessment summary, is per specific meter point. The enterprise power quality summary, you can select more than one measurement point. So let's select 2 using the same standard for the same period. Let's just see if we have data available. And then we click on, just going to add that, click on schedule. Okay, so it's busy with that one as well. So that's the enterprise power quality summary, enterprise voltage events. So again, this voltage event report will only show the a report of your events for that specific measurement point. But if you want to view an overview of your whole, as a report of your whole fleet, for example, all the events on your whole fleet and all the measurement points, you can do that by selecting the enterprise voltage events report. So I'll do the same thing here just to show you an example of how it looks. Okay, and then there's some additional reports as well, which I'm not going to show at this time. But you can see now that enterprise power quality summary report is done. So if I click on a PDF, again, it's going to download the PDF. And here it's just going to give me a table of the 3 measurement points that I've selected. And then if it's complying to the standard, to the NRS 048 or not. So voltage regulation is complying, THD it's complying, voltage unbalance complying. The dips, Y and A1 dips on this for each one of them. There was 1 there, 2 and 7 there. The number of interruptions and other dip or swells. And then what percentage of data we have available for each one of them. So that's just an overview of your whole enterprise. So let's do now a summary for a specific site. If I do that one. Now it's just going to give me a summary. So it's going to look at all of these parameters that we have here and just give you some additional information for the site that you've selected. So firstly, it tells me what percentage of data we have available. So valid data is 90%.
Hein, I think we lost you there. If you can hear me, please
Or
maybe fix it.
even GPS synchronization issues will cause missing data. So that's important. And then flagging data is, if you read a NRS 048, is for each 10-minute interval value where there was a dip, that 10-minute trend or interval is flat and it doesn't form part of the power quality assessment. So that's just the difference between the 3 data availability measurements. Okay, then it's basically sectioned into voltage unbalance, voltage regulation, voltage unbalance, THD, and voltage harmonics. So it will give you a table of, for example, how your voltage magnitude assessment looks. We can see it's compliant or not. Again, we will go in more detail of what this means when we do the power quality standards training next month or the month after. But this is what you can suspect. So it will provide you with an assessment in terms of regulation, unbalance, THD, and then just your voltage harmonics and if they are passing or not. And then also a consumption report. So you can view what was the max demand, what's the power factor at max demand or the average during this period. This is just a summary. So if you go to the full site assessment report for this one, okay, it's still busy, but then it gives more data. So there's additional information then also added. So this is just a summary, and then the site assessment will add more information and more trends to these or to this. Okay, let's see the enterprise voltage events. Let's view that report quickly. So now it will take your whole network or the ones that you've selected, and it will give you information on what sort of dips, the number of them, what's the class of dips, and so on. Obviously, I've only selected one site here. So if you've selected more sites, you'll have all the dips and swells of all your measurement points will show on this list. Okay, I'm basically just waiting for that site assessment power quality standard report. Okay, while it's busy with that, let me show you just scheduled reports. So scheduled reports are the same thing. You can schedule the same reports, but now you just specify when Osprey Pro needs to send it to you. So again, you can select power quality site assessment report from the NRS 048. You can give it a name and what type do you want it, in Word or PDF, and then when do you want to schedule this report. So you can schedule it monthly, weekly, or daily, and then what time on that day should the report be sent to you and for what measurement point. So let's just make a report here so that you can see if I schedule this monthly now for this measurement point, and then the last thing you need to do is provide who needs to receive this report. So you can actually, from the users on Osprey Pro, select who needs to receive this report and then for when it's scheduled. So this is quite nice. You can schedule them monthly and send them to everyone who needs the report. So if I specify someone or select someone, then they will show up on the list. And if I save this now, that person will receive this report monthly. Okay, let's go back to the ad hoc. Let's see, okay, now that report is also done. So if I download that now in PDF format, now it's going to show me the same parameters as for the summary report, but there's additional information. For example, now you can view the individual 10-minute values for voltages as well. There's a histogram that shows you basically the distribution of each phase in terms of voltage. Then the apparent power. So now you can compare how your voltage, 10-minute voltage RMS values change compared to, for example, your load. And then just a voltage profile. So now it takes this whole month period and it generates a typical voltage profile for a week. And that is now done for each one of the parameters. So there's now additional more trends and more parameters that you can. So for example, THD is a nice one to view this. This is a 7-day typical profile, and you can see how the harmonics increase and decrease for each day, which is quite nice to to do some analysis and to view your performance in terms of power quality. Yeah, and then if I scroll down, it will actually show me trends for each individual harmonic as well. So now it will show me for each individual. So this is the 3rd harmonic, 7th harmonic, 9th, all the same trends for each one of them individually. It's a quite long report. Okay, that is reports. Any questions? Okay, then the last thing I want to show you is the viewers. So this is where you plot any other trends that you want to view. So under the home portal, the viewers tab, there's multiple or different things that you can plot. For example, you can first plot data availability. So this will show you for what days you have data available for the different measurement points. Trends is to plot all the trends that the device is recording. So this is generally how the trend viewer looks. You'll have your time that you can select. You can select the sort of plot that you want to make. So again, there's your line plot, dual axis, line, scatter plots, harmonic spectrum, table, histogram, and box plots. So it's just different ways of plotting data. And you can plot the power from Osprey Pro here is you can plot different measurement points on the same graphs again. So for example, let's take a line plot. I'll take 2 measurement points. So I select 2 measurement points. I then select the data stream that I want to plot. So I want to plot the 10-minute RMS data. And let's do the phase A voltage as a percentage of the declared. And now you can actually select what measurement or give them a color. So you can change the color of the trends for the different measurement points. Also give a title to the plot and maybe specify the minimum Y and maximum Y axis values. So let's plot that just so that you can see an example. So I think this is going to plot the last month of data. So here you can see your RMS, the 10-minute RMS data for the voltage for phase A for 2 different measurement points. You can see they follow each other nicely. There's a small percentage change between the 2 points, but they follow the same voltage. So they're probably from the same supply. And you can add additional plots. So you can take the same two measurement points. Let's say we want to now plot the active power, the net active power. So you can specify import or export or the net. And you can also select individual phases or the total power. Again, you can change the color if you want to. So let's just make it something different. And now you can view your active power for these 2 points on the same graph. Now these gaps are load shedding or disturbances, because you can see the voltage drops to 0. Okay, so, you can move these graphs around. So this is like a canvas, and you can move them around as you see fit. You can zoom in. If you zoom in on one, it zooms in on the other graphs as well for the same period. You can change the Y and X values or zoom in by just scrolling on the Y axis like that. And you can also export these graphs. So if you click on this toolbar, you can export this graph as a PNG or in SVG format. SVG is vector graphics format. And then you can also export it as a CSV. So this data can be exported in a CSV or Excel format. Okay, another graph I want to show you is just the harmonic spectrum, for example. So let's just do the harmonic spectrum for that site. But now I select the data stream, the 10-minute harmonics. So in brackets, I select harmonics, not RMS. And now I can plot, for example, the RMS harmonics. You can select, should it be, so RMS voltage, should it be in volt or in percentage of declared, for what channels, and then what harmonics do I want to plot. So let's say I'm not interested in even harmonics, I can remove those, only select the odd harmonics, only the averages, so I don't want to add the minimum and maximum values within that 10-minute trend. Then add that, and then I plot. Just give it a second to load. Okay, so you'll see immediately there's two new sliders that's on the page. This is because this harmonic trend is the harmonic spectrum for a specific 10-minute timestamp. So you can see if I move this slider on the top graph, it moves where in time I am. So if I move this, you can see how the harmonic spectrum changed because it shows the harmonic spectrum at that point of time. Okay, so let's put it back in the beginning. This slider determines how fast it steps through the data. So if I make it on its fastest and I click on play, now it steps through the time. You can see how your harmonic spectrum changes, for example, compared to the active power at that point. And again, you can at any point pause this or move it yourself to any point that you're interested in, and then you can export this data as well. Okay, so that is the harmonic spectrum and the general way how these plots work. Do you have any questions on the trend viewer, specifically how you view data? I think the important thing that you need to know is for each one of these trends, you need to first select the measurement point and then select what data stream you want to plot. So just note that although you can maybe select the 3-second data stream, if you haven't recorded that data stream, you won't be able to view it. And the other thing is also Osprey Pro with the license, we only import 10-minute trends. So even if you've enabled these trends, generally you won't be able to view them. And you'll need to download the data manually on site and then plot it on Osprey Lite. Okay, I just want to see if we have questions. Okay, I don't see any questions, so yeah, I think let's then continue. The other thing is, at any point, if you don't understand anything, there will be question marks. So if you go to trends and you plot a line trend and you don't know what does the advanced feature, for example, mean, there's a question mark that you can click on and it will give you some additional information with regards to that function. Now, the advanced function plotting is you can actually do JavaScript. You can write JavaScript that can plot the graphs or manipulate the graphs and the data to plot or to view something else. So just an example is, for example, if you want to add the active power of 2 measurement points, so you want to sum them together, then you can select the 2 measurement points. You select, for example, the active power of both of them. And now under the advanced function, You can add them together using that code. You can plot that, and now it basically adds the active power of one to the other. So this is your combined active power then of the two measurement points. So that's advanced function. You'll get examples of different coding that you can do, or yeah, there's obviously more. This is just an example. Okay, then other viewers, there's the event viewer. Now the difference between this viewer and this incident viewer is that the event viewer shows you all the events that happened at all measurement points. So it's not grouping them into this one incident. So as Peter, as you said earlier, now it shows you each individual event that happened on the network. So if I take the last 7 days and I query for the last 7 days for all measurement points, it now shows your whole list of events that happened during the last 7 days. And you can see this is actually the same thing again, because it's the same time, but here they're not grouped together. So here you view them individually. You can also plot the spark lines. So here is the spark lines. So now you can just get an overview of how the voltage and current RMS values, power and reactive power looks. And then at any one of them, you can actually get more detailed values. So let's say I select these 2 points and I then click on detail. Now I can again plot the RMS voltage for both of them on the same graph, for example. So now you can see how your RMS voltage looks on the 2 different measurement points for the same event. You can see how the red phase, the different phases of them basically respond to the event. And the power here is that you can actually compare waveforms. So if I plot the waveform voltage, just channel 1 of both these measurement points, now you can see it looks like one graph, but it's actually the voltage waveform on the 2 measurement points are running basically on top of each other. And this we can do because our devices are GPS time synchronized. So it looks like the same voltage, but actually you can see there's a small difference in the voltage, the different voltage measured on the 2 points. So you can see how the dip was a bit deeper on the one than on the other one. Let's add the other 2 phases as well. So waveform voltage for all 3 phases. So you can clearly see that it's 2 measurement points, but it's plotting the waveform data for both of them on the same graph. All right, so that is the event viewer. Now you'll see this specific event. It's classified as the event class is a timer, and that is because this event was created using a timed recording. Okay, so I'm going to show you that as well next. So we have the availability to take a snapshot or do basically trigger a waveform recording. So you do that under tools, so home tools. You have the function to do a timed recording. So it's basically rather than waiting for an event to trigger a recording. So let's say a dip to trigger a waveform recording. You want to now trigger it manually. So I want to take a waveform recording at this moment of time. So you do that by clicking on it, then clicking on the measurement point that you want to do a waveform recording. You can say you can schedule it for a specific time or do it immediately. Provide the duration. The maximum duration is 59 seconds. The number of iterations you want to do, and then what data should be recorded in this time. So you can do a waveform recording at this moment of time and actually record the waveforms. The difference between a timed recording and a snapshot is that a timed recording is at an individual point. So this will take a waveform recording at this specific measurement point. Whereas a snapshot, you can actually take a waveform recording or record data on all the measurement points on the same time. And that is just basically what I've done here. So if I can just go back to the events, I've done a timed recording here. And now you can view that data by using the same way that you view normal events. So I can plot the waveform voltage during this recording. So here you can see the waveforms data that I recorded during that timed recording. Here is the waveform current. So obviously nothing happened during this period. The voltage and current basically just stayed constant, but yeah, this can be a nice tool if you want to do an investigation and you want to see what happens, for example, when a motor starts up. You can trigger the recording manually for a minute or so and see what happens with the voltages or currents, for example. Okay, then additional data that you can view the instrument telemetry. So that is data like the battery temperature of the device. So for example, again, the viewer is the same. You have the period, the different graphs that you can plot. If I select a measurement point here, there's a few things I can plot. So let's take the temperature as an example. So I can plot the battery temperature. Again, select the color, plot, and now it plots the battery temperature over this period. Okay, and then the real-time view, this function is not currently available to clients. So it's basically, you can do a real-time view. So let me take a real-time view of this measurement point, this moment of time. So it takes a snapshot, 200 milliseconds snapshot of how the voltage and currents look at this moment of time. So it's basically a real-time view. But this function is not currently available to clients because of the amount of data that it takes if you do a lot of real-time views. But we are thinking of implementing this in the future, maybe with a limit per day or per month for each measurement point, so that you don't exceed the data usage limit on that measurement point. Okay, under tools, you can do targeted exports. So again, targeted downloads is only available currently internally in CityLab. So yeah, that function is not at this moment available to you, but you can do targeted exports. So you can export the data in a CSV format. So here you can see two data streams that was exported in the past. So if you want to generate a new data export, you click on New Export, and now you select the period again. You select for what measurement point you want to export data. You can select the format that it needs to be exported as. So by default, it's CSV format. You can give it a description if you want to, and then select the data streams that you want to export. So if I select only this data stream, it will only export all 10-minute RMS data. If I also want harmonic data, then I need to click on 10-minute harmonic data. So if I do that and I save, it's now going to create a file, a CSV file, that you can then download to post-process or so on afterwards in CSV format. or basically it creates a zip file, rather a zip file, and in that zip file there's different different Excel or CSV files containing the data that you selected. So if I take this one as an example that I've done in the past, so if I download that, you can see it's a zip file with 6.46 megabytes. Then if you download that, then it saves it, and if you click on it, you can see there's one specific Excel sheet or in it, and it's a 10-minute RMS values. So if I open that up, now you can see the 10-minute RMS data within this Excel file. Okay, let's just go back. So that's targeted exports. I've shown you timed recordings and snapshots, and you can also export logs. So logs is basically what the device is doing. So any internal logs of the device. You can view the logs also by going to Instrument and then clicking on Logs. So now it will give you all, you can specify what logs you want to view. So let's say you only want to view error logs. Then it will retrieve all the errors that the device gave over the last 7 days. You can see there's no errors currently. And if you want to export the logs, so let's say there's an issue with the device, you can export the logs and send it to us, maybe for further investigation. You do that by exporting the system logs. Okay, and I think that basically covers everything that I wanted to discuss today. Is there anything specific, maybe that you have questions on Osprey Pro? Because this is the last session that gives an overview on Osprey Pro. We'll now, in future sessions, focus on specific functions. But if you have any questions, we still have a few minutes for questions. Yes, Herman.
It's not so much about Osprey Pro, it's for the full direction. How do we determine ourselves what's a full direction?
Okay, there's a few ways that I do it. If I do a event analysis, it's difficult to now show you because I'll need to search for an example. But what I look at is firstly at if you have multiple measurement points on the network, you first look at if you see fault current anywhere in the network. If you obviously see a fault current in your network, then you know there is a fault normally within your network. Obviously, there's also then you can look at what your voltage dips does. If your voltage RMS drops lower or drops, and the change in the current doesn't really, how can I say it? The change in the current that you see is not the cause of that big voltage dips. It's most likely that that's an external upstream event. Or if you see that there's an event on all your measurement points, you don't see any fault current, and you only see basically the voltage and the RMS currents responding to an event, then it's most likely also an upstream external event, so coming from the utility, and it's not within your network. So that is with an overview how I look at it. I think you can get more technical if you look at the individual sequence components to do further analysis, but that's a bit out of the scope of today. Maybe we can focus on that in the next session. But that's briefly the few things I look at mostly when I look at the event.
Okay, thank you. And then one more question for the SD card. Do we need to worry that it's going to become full and then get corrupted, or does it just work like the vector graphs where it's full when it just drops off old information?
Yes. So with the new cards that we have, they are industrial cards. So all the devices coming out now should be or should contain industrial cards. You don't need to worry about them becoming corrupt when they are full. In the past, we have seen issues with that when they become full and it's not the industrial card because they can't, the card can't write fast enough before deleting the old data. So you're not supposed to worry about this at this point. What it will do is, let's say the device is full, it will start deleting all data while the new data is being stored. So it's basically first in, first out concept. If you only enable 10-minute trends and 10-minute dips and swells, or not 10-minute dips and swells, normal dips and swells from the as classified by the NRS, you should at least get 4 years of data. Is what we think you should at least get 4 years of data from that. So you will only start really having data issues or card issues becoming full if you start enabling other trends as well, such as 3-second trends or 1-minute trends, or even obviously enabling continuous waveform recording will also cause that issue. But to answer it, no, you shouldn't worry about it becoming corrupted if you have industrial card installed.
So with the old recorders, I've got 2 recorders that I installed and I never went back there. And then when I eventually go back, then I found that these 2 recorders was where the SD cards is corrupted, and basically
Yes.
now I can't use them without sending them back. And being an ESCOM employee, that's very difficult.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So as I said, the one thing that we've seen is the old cards that become full, and then that can happen. It shouldn't happen with the new cards. The other thing that we've seen that can cause this issue, and it's been fixed on the latest firmware also that's available for the devices, is that let's say the power supply or power to the device is lost, and the device does not properly turn off or properly shut down. So it's basically a hard turn off. Then what the SD card can also become corrupted because it didn't shut down properly. Now that also has been fixed on some of the latest firmware. So I'm sorry for that happened. If you send the devices in, then we can upgrade the SD card and also upload the latest firmware, which should solve that issue in the future.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, one more thing. When we download the data manually and we select new data, it takes a very long time. It's faster to download the complete database, but when we overwrite our old data if we try to upload it on the ESCOM network, is there a way to speed up this new data only that it doesn't take so long?
Yeah, so you're referring now to Osprey Lite and not Osprey Pro.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, so no, as you said on Osprey Lite, there's only those 2 ways. Unfortunately, it's either downloading the data normally, which will take a long time, or the DB download with the disadvantage that during the time when you're doing a DB download, it also doesn't download data in that period on the device itself. So there's going to be a gap in the data in the future for that period. Unfortunately, that's the only functions available at this stage on Osprey Lite.
Okay, now I was hoping you were going to tell me it's a setting error or something I've got that I can fix.
No, so what happens if you do a normal download is, and you select new data, it's only going to download the data that is new. So let's say you select the period of the last month, but you already have some of the data downloaded. That's now using Osprey Lite. Then it will only download the data that's new. So it won't overwrite all data. But if you do the DB download, then it's basically compressing all the data for that period in a zip file. And when you import it into Osprey Lite, it overrides all your all data. So yes, the only way I can see you overcoming that is using the normal method without doing the complete DB instrument. And obviously that can take a while if it's a lot of data.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Armand. Do we have any other questions?
Okay, Hein, it looks like there are no other questions.
Yes, so I want to thank you everyone for joining. As the boss said in the beginning of the session, we will make this video available on YouTube and send the link to you. We will also notify you of upcoming training sessions that will also be still free of charge monthly. So thank you for joining. And if you have any additional questions, you're welcome to contact us or even myself with email, and we'll get back to you.
Before everyone goes, Hein, let me first thank everyone for attending this session. And then I was busy with the attendance register, and I've got 3 email addresses that are missing. Eileen Tesla, Retabile Tsele, and Tabiso Khosiemang. Can you please just write your email addresses in the comment section for us, please, so that when we send out the links and any other communication, we don't omit you. So please just write your email addresses in the comment section. And again, thank you guys for attending. We will make sure that we invite you again for other trainings. I see there's a hand by Ntla Ntsadu. Ntla Ntsadu, there's a hand there.
Yeah, just a question. Do you have all videos on YouTube, even the previous ones, or it's just going to be this one only?
It will be, Tebogo, you can go.
Okay, they will all be uploaded on YouTube. So on our YouTube channel, you should be able to get all of them sooner than later.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Is there any other question before we go? Herman?
I think I speak on behalf of all of us. We just like to say thank you very much. This is helpful for us.
Thank you, Arman. I appreciate it. Sorry, Tebogo. The last thing I want to say is we will send a link for customer feedback. We'd really appreciate it, or if you want to give feedback, we would really appreciate your feedback on maybe how we can improve or how you found the training. But thank you for that.
Any other question or comment? Okay, if there is nothing else, thank you guys. Thank you very much. We will send you an email, like Hein was saying, with customer feedbacks and all that. Please communicate with us. Please give us feedback on these trainings. And yeah, let's go out there and make the world a better place. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Must
Thank
appreciate.
you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.